Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Anne Fazakali, and I'm the Head of Philanthropy at the Bionics Institute in Melbourne, Australia. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today, Student Support, Changing the Future of Medicine. I'd like to begin by acknowledging on behalf of all of us involved in this webinar, the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their continued connections to land, sea and culture. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia, and indeed to all First Nations people throughout the world, as we have several people today joining us from overseas. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. Any questions that you might have for our panel, please put into the Q&A function on your screen, and we'll aim to answer selected questions after the presentations. I'd also at this point like to acknowledge and say thank you to all of our donors, many of whom have been really loyal to the Bionics Institute over the years, from when we began as the pioneers of the cochlear implant, commonly known as the bionic ear. And I know that some of those donors are here today, and we really do thank you for your generosity and support, as that really helps us continue our groundbreaking work into new and innovative areas of medicine. We simply could not do our research without the generosity of our funders, and we do thank you, and we know that you have choices, and we're so delighted that you've chosen us. So our focus today is to understand the vital role that students play in pioneering new and innovative research, and how together we can support students to become the research stars of the future. So I'll kick off the discussion, and then I'll be joined by Sheridan Lang, who's our research program manager here at the Bionics Institute. And then we'll be joined by Dr. Julia Wunderlich, our senior clinical research fellow with the Bionics Institute's human hearing team. And then finally, you'll hear from one of our lovely PhD students, Ajmal Aziz, and he's working in our hearing area. So students, they play a really important part in pioneering medical breakthroughs that all of us and our loved ones might need at some point in our lives. And the research breakthroughs that have taken place to date very often were developed by hardworking researchers who began their early careers as postgraduate students following their PhD and master's studies. And yet, studying for a postgraduate degree, it takes years of intense work, and financial constraints can be a key consideration as to whether people pursue that path or not. Many students face the really tough decision between earning an income to cover their costs or earning a degree. This issue is particularly severe for those students who come from low income and disadvantaged backgrounds, who simply don't have the financial capacity to consider a research career. And this often prevents the brightest minds from pursuing a pathway in research education. So how many life-changing and world-changing ideas have been lost because students have not been given the opportunity to meet their full potential? So one way that we as a community here at the Bionics Institute can support students is by providing scholarships. Scholarships help provide opportunities and also financial security for those people who might otherwise miss out. And then the scholarships enable them to pursue translational medical research with us. Students are then able to immerse themselves fully in the opportunities that we can provide, giving them the confidence and the chance to excel. So today we'd like to do three things: introduce the role that postgraduate students have here at the Bionics Institute, highlight how important our students are in pioneering the medical breakthroughs of the future. And thirdly, explain the barriers that they face in undertaking research with us and why it's essential that we provide as much help as possible through student scholarships so that they can make progress with their innovative ideas. We'll now hear from Sheridan Lang, our Research Programme Manager at the Bionics Institute. Sheridan.
Thank you very much, Anne. So as Anne said, my name is Sheridan. I am a biomedical engineer and the Research Program Manager at the Bionics Institute. Together with our Chief Technology Officer, Professor James Fallon, and our Research Administrator, Sam Batten, we form the Student Coordination and Support Team at the Institute. So this means that we have the pleasure of organising the student program and ensuring that our students are nurtured, supported, and fully integrated into research at the Bionics Institute. So today I'll be providing an overview of the Bionics Institute student program and highlighting why our students are so important for our delivery of research into life-changing medical devices. So there are a number of avenues in which we engage with and support science, engineering and medical students throughout their degrees. So this includes internships, final year projects and honours degrees. But today I would specifically like to talk about 2 graduate research degrees, the PhD and the Masters by Research programs. So the PhD is the premier research award. It's the highest level of qualification in Australia. These projects are up to 4 years in duration, and during this time, students make a significant and original contribution to knowledge in their subject area. So with the guidance of our staff, our PhD students are the owners and the drivers of their projects. This means that they're supported to guide the direction of the research to areas that they find most interesting or based on exciting results that they may have seen throughout the course of their project. Our PhD students are really crucial to the work that we do at the Bionics Institute, and we are really proud to give young and enthusiastic researchers the opportunity to obtain their research training in an environment where they get to see firsthand the impact of that world-class research. The Masters by Research degrees are sometimes called Masters of Philosophy, and these are a little well less known. So they differ from regular coursework masters in that they're a research project and they're awarded based on a thesis. So these are up to 2 years in duration and they can be an excellent pathway to PhD study. Reasons why students might undertake a master's rather than a PhD is that when students finish their undergraduate degrees or 4-year engineering science degrees, there may be some hesitation into entering another 4-year degree to obtain a PhD. They might have had limited research experience and might not feel comfortable making that pretty large commitment. So the Masters by Research degree provides an excellent opportunity to experience that day-to-day life as a researcher so that students can more confidently decide whether a career in research is for them. But also, if they get to the end of their master's degree, there is an opportunity to actually convert that into a PhD so they can continue directly on that path of achieving the PhD without any time lost. So we think that the master's is an excellent opportunity for students who, quite understandably, aren't sure what they would like to do next, but are excited by that idea of a career in research. So what kind of things do our students work on at the Bionics Institute? So we always have a range of projects and are interested in supporting students from varied science and engineering backgrounds. Examples of some of our current projects include optimising our rheumatoid arthritis treatments using vagal nerve stimulation, understanding the causes of cognitive impairments associated with Alzheimer's patients, investigating the use of light and electricity to treat chronic pain and hearing loss, as Ajmal is going to talk about later, and additional research in hearing loss, which includes drug therapies, improvements in speech understanding for cochlear implant users, and hearing tests for babies and infants. So as you can see, our students provide a great contribution to projects all across the spectrum of research undertaken at the Bionics Institute. Because our students bring so much to the Institute, we want to ensure that we're holding up our end of the bargain and are delivering for our students as well. So how are we supporting those students? We pride ourselves at the Bionics Institute for having a really multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. So if you compare this to traditional academic settings, students are placed in research labs which sit in university departments where most people have the same kind of backgrounds and work on the same kinds of projects. So the Bionics Institute is unique in this multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. This means that our students are supported by and get to learn from staff with expertise across many disciplines of science, engineering, and technical expertise. So because we have this breadth of expertise on staff at the Bionics Institute, our students also have access to a really wide range of world-class facilities. So this includes various labs, hearing assessment rooms, and an on-site electrode fabrication and medical device prototyping facility at Neobionica, which is the first of its kind in Australia. Our focus on the translation of research into clinical realities gives our students experience and insights into the commercialisation pathways and the reward of seeing real-world application of their research that not many research students get to see. Our location at St Vincent's Hospital in the Eastern Hill Precinct also strengthens our ties to the medical community and helps ensure the clinical relevance of our projects. So while we are in the Eastern Hill Precinct and have really close ties with the University of Melbourne, we're also really open to new partnerships, and we have a number of excellent students and academic collaborations from a broad range of universities across Australia. So in summary, the Bionics Institute really prides itself on providing unique opportunities and exciting career paths to our research students. And we do this because students are really integral to our mission. As mentioned, we pride ourselves on the multidisciplinary approaches to solving some of the most difficult problems in medical bionics. We bring experts from across different streams of science, engineering, and clinical specialties to ensure that our solutions are robust, holistic, and translatable. So this diversity of input is equally as important when we consider the background and experience of our research teams. And that's where our students contribute greatly to this diversity, because they bring inquisitiveness and new networks, different perspectives and new ideas informed by the latest teaching to really challenge the status quo. So this means that our research teams that incorporate students, they think more critically, they problem solve faster and more effectively. And this leads to our medical bionic solutions being more creative and innovative. So this brings me to our student scholarships. So to continue supporting our students and help them to pursue a successful career in research, we have established the Bionics Institute Student Scholarship Fund. So this provides top-up financial support to our Masters by Research and PhD students, both full and part-time. At the Bionics Institute, we understand the financial barriers to entry that many students face to continue research careers postgraduate study, as Anne discussed earlier. So for many, it can come down to a choice of working on life-changing research or working in an alternate career to pay their bills and support their families, especially so with the rising costs of living. Some of our past and current students wouldn't have been able to undertake research and achieve the incredible things that they have without receiving scholarship support. So as much as possible, we want to nurture and foster the research superstars of tomorrow to help pioneer life-changing medical breakthroughs. So with that, I will pass back to Anne. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheridan. I'd now like to invite members of our team to share their personal stories, their experiences of undertaking postgraduate research to reach their goal of becoming researchers and helping patients, and how support through scholarship funding has helped them and made that possible. So first, I'd like to talk to Dr. Julia Wunderlich, an audiologist who's a key and integral member of our human hearing team. So Julia, I'd like to ask how you initially got into research and how you were helped through scholarship funding.
Thanks, Anne. Love this opportunity to talk about my past. I've had a slightly unusual pathway into research. In fact, I've stepped in and out of clinical work and research. So to be honest, when I completed my postgraduate audiology training, the last thing I could have even dreamt about doing was doing a PhD or doing any further study. In fact, I wanted to get into the clinic, into the world, and make a difference. And so that's exactly what I did for 12 years. I worked as a pediatric audiologist here and overseas. And in that time, I encountered lots of babies who had me scratching my head, and who had all of us scratching our heads, presented really difficult clinical problems for us. And I realized that I really needed to take a deep dive into what it was that I was doing, which was, we were at the time at the forefront of infant diagnostic testing. So, you know, working out whether a newborn baby can hear or not. And so as it turned out, the then professor of audiology had a scholarship that was available through her, and I was successful in getting that scholarship, which meant that I could work full-time on my PhD. And without that scholarship, that simply would not have been possible. I had a mortgage, I had responsibilities, and it would not have even been on the radar for me to do without some financial support. So, yes.
So I was going to ask, what was it that brought you back in particular to research after you'd been a clinical practitioner for so many years? What motivated you back?
Yes, so I did my PhD, and then long story short, I went back into clinical practice and taking all of my PhD skills and knowledge into that work. But I was still being presented with these tricky kids, basically, children for whom I really just didn't have a solution, despite my having deep dived into the realms of the area. And so I now, in particular, one of those problems is a condition that some babies are born with called auditory neuropathy, where the existing tests simply don't work, and which is a really vexed problem, has been for all of my career. And it so happened that Professor Colette McKay at the Bionics Institute had just started a lab where she was using a completely new technology, using light to image babies' brain activity and developing a new way of testing hearing. And that had the real promise and has the real promise of providing a test that we can use for babies with auditory neuropathy, as well as a whole lot of other things.
So it was the technology that brought you back to the Bionics Institute. Was there anything else, other opportunities that you felt the Bionics Institute offered you at that stage?
Well, I think the things that really pulled me back out of the clinic was that opportunity to actually develop something real that would be helpful in the clinic. So as Sheridan mentioned before, the Bionics Institute is all about finding a difficult problem, finding an innovation and researching and finding a new way to solve it, and then taking that next step and putting it in translation into the clinic, into the hands of people who can help other people. And that is what really excited me about the Institute, that I wouldn't just be doing research for research's sake, that there was a real translation. And the other thing that's really exciting about the Institute, and it was mentioned earlier, the impact of the opportunity, to have a global impact. We have a lot of international students in the PhD programs. And in fact, my PhD student is an audiologist from Malaysia, on Wan Lee, who is a bit like me, was in the clinic, needed a deep dive, went into this PhD program. Now he'll be taking all of his knowledge and connections and expertise eventually back to Malaysia and being able to develop the profession and the services to hearing impaired people in Malaysia. And so having that kind of a global reach to my personal work is actually something that I really value as well.
No, that's good to hear. And I think we're all motivated by that global impact at the Bionics Institute, aren't we? And the fact that the impact is close to patients, you know, we're very translational, very applied in all the work that we do. So thanks very much for that, Julia. Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'd now like to call on Sheridan, if you'd like to come back in, Sheridan. I think you've got a very interesting story, slightly unusual and an unconventional way to come in and complete your PhD. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yes, certainly. So I was one of those students who, when they finished their 4-year engineering degree, so I studied Bachelor of Biomedical Engineering with honours, but by the end of this 4 years, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Through the engineering degree that I did, there was a small exposure to research and I really enjoyed it. But I was one of those students who didn't feel that they were quite ready to take the plunge into the 4-year PhD off the back of that. And so I enrolled in the Masters of Philosophy. And so while there are stipend scholarships available to Masters students, we are at the very bottom of that pile after the PhD students. So at this point, I didn't get a stipend scholarship for my Masters. But because I grew up in rural Victoria, I had moved to Melbourne for university and I was supporting myself. And so to do the master's degree full time, I also had to work, I think, 3 to 4 additional jobs on the side to financially support myself through that period. I loved my research. It was in prosthetic limbs. It was very interesting, but keeping my head above water during that time was pretty difficult. So throughout the course of my master's degree, using the skills that I learned there, I was offered a full-time position in a research organisation, and I simply couldn't say no to that. The appeal of 1 job as opposed to 4 was very enticing to me at that time. So I put the master's on hold and went off to this full-time research position. About 4 years later, I was loving it. I knew that research was for me by this stage, and I knew that I had that body of work sitting there that I had begun on my master's. And so I thought it was time to revisit that. And I re-enrolled as a part-time PhD student to complete that study and add to it to make it into a PhD worthy project. But by this point, to do that, I took 1 day off a week at work. So I took a small pay cut. And again, I was a part-time PhD student. So I was the second bottom of the list for stipends, just above the master's students by this point. So again, I was working 4 days a week, doing the PhD 1 day a week, and then at nights and on weekends. So it wasn't a very fun time, but I was really proud to obviously get to the end of it and to have achieved that given the circumstances and, as you say, my unconventional pathway.
Yeah, unconventional and very tough way to do a PhD, I would say. So if there'd been a scholarship available to you at that point in your career, what difference do you think that might have made to you in terms of timing, in terms of workload, in terms of work-life balance? How would it have made a difference?
Well, I certainly would have had a nicer time of it. So we obviously aren't built to work, all day and then all night and then every weekend. So I know that it is, a PhD is meant to be hard, but it probably shouldn't be that hard. And obviously sustaining that over an extensive period of time isn't doing anyone any favours, mentally or physically. So I was very lucky to be surrounded by really supportive family, friends, colleagues, supervisors, other PhD students. But if I didn't have that support network, I simply wouldn't have made it through. And so that is why these Bionics Institute scholarships, especially being available to master's students and part-time PhD students, I think is really important, because it comes back again to that diversity of our researchers. And we know that people come from different backgrounds, they have different life circumstances, but we want to encourage everyone to pursue a career in research, regardless of the particular pathway that they're taking. And so, the more we can support this diversity, the better.
Great, thanks so much for that, Sheridan. And Your enthusiasm and motivation for helping students shines through your work at the Bionics Institute, and we all share that motivation for sure. Thank you very much, Sheridan. So I'd now like to call on Ajmal to join in our discussion. And so I'd like to start by asking you, Ajmal, you're one of our current PhD students. What made you decide to embark upon a career in medical research?
Thank you very much, and for giving me this opportunity to share my experience and the impact of scholarships on my research journey. As I approached end of my undergraduate degree, I found myself reflecting on how I could use my engineering knowledge to make a positive impact on people's lives. Like, my passion for research was really ignited by my desire to make a difference in the lives of people who face challenges due to hearing loss. Having witnessed patients with deafness struggle with the limitation of existing cochlear implant technology, I was inspired to explore new ways to improve the lives of those affected by hearing loss. I knew that a career in research would allow me to apply my knowledge and skills in innovative ways and be at the forefront of developing cutting-edge solutions to positively impact the lives of countless individuals.
Medical research. Taking that a bit further, Ajmal, what brought you to the Bionics Institute? Why us?
While searching for different technologies, I came across optogenetics, a field that uses light to control the activity of nerves. I was immediately impressed by the potential of this technology, and I knew that it has the power to help millions of people worldwide in treating their neurological condition and various diseases. While I was searching for PhD opportunities, I found a project led by Professor Rachel Richardson at the Bionics Institute in optogenetics. And also, luckily, I also found a scholarship from the Bionics Institute and also the RMIT University that matched up with this project.
Okay, so if the scholarship had not been available, would it have been possible for you to pursue your dream, to follow your dream of a research career?
The honest answer is that without the scholarship, pursuing a career in research and focusing on improving cutting-edge technology would have been impossible for me. I became the top-ranked student in my batch at the end of first year of my bachelor's degree, but even so, the financial burden of higher education and the cost of living in a new city like Melbourne would have been too great for my family to bear. It was heartbreaking to think that after all the time and effort that I had put in to achieve a first-class degree, I would still have to give up on my dream to being a researcher.
And what a shame that would have been. Well, first off, we wouldn't have had the benefit of you working with us as one of our students. And how wonderful that you stayed resilient and you persevered to find a scholarship option away from your home and family to enable you to continue that dream. So what happened next, Ajmal?
I learned about the scholarships options that were available and how this could be a financial chance for me to continue my studies to help people. I was offered a scholarship in Australia, and the financial support provided by the scholarship has allowed me to dedicate my whole time and efforts to my research without the burden of financial stress, and entirely focus only on the research to make a significant impact in the cochlear implant technology.
And following up on that comment about research impact, what impact do you hope your research will have?
My research is focused on improving the performance of cochlear implants. We are using light to stimulate auditory nerves and send sound waves to the brain. Current technology uses electrical currents to stimulate nerves. So we hope this work will lead to a significant advancement to the cochlear implant, and it will enable users to better distinguish speech from different people in the family and to enjoy music. also allowing them to fully participate in daily activities, social interaction, and to experience the richness of the world around them. I'm so grateful that scholarship allowed me to help progress a breakthrough that has the potential to significantly improve the quality of life for those with hearing loss.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your story there, Ajmal. And thanks to everybody on our panel today. Wonderful to hear your 3 very different personal stories about how student scholarships have either helped dramatically or would have been helpful if they'd been available. So our belief is that by having scholarships for potential masters and PhD students, that helps us with our innovative research to enable us to discover new and better ways to treat the most challenging medical conditions and take on the great global challenges for a very positive impact on the world. So thank you for your attention. We'd like to thank all our friends, donors and supporters, new, old, large, small, and I hope that those of you watching today will consider supporting our student scholarships. Thank you all very much. Thank you and goodbye.